Well, let me tell you what I'm doing here. As I teach a course at the U of A. Been doing it for seems like forever. It's U.S.-China relations. And one of the points that I'm trying to make when I get to the economics unit is just how fast China has become an economic power. I will be showing you slides, I'll be showing you graphics to back up what I'm saying. I'm going to start off, as you can see from the next slide, I'm going to start off with a list of the richest countries in the world, because what China's doing now, it's using its money to become the superpower by 2049. This is in their plan. It's out, it's in writing. I'll show you that in just a moment. So this is not a date to be trifled with, because China does have an objective, and it has dates, it has phases that it's going to go through to surpass the US in just about every category you can imagine. So I'm going to start off with a list of richest countries. Because I don't think that people realize, again, just how wealthy China is and how they're using their resources to advance themselves in what we call STEM. And you can see from the note here that global wealth tripled over the last 2 decades, China leading the way, overtaking the US for the top spot worldwide last year and going into this year. And you can see China's wealth right now compared to other countries. When you look at GDP, and I've put on GDP what I'm trying to get you to do, if you're interested in taking notes on this interactive from YouTube, you can see how China started 20 years ago. Most of everything that I'm saying is in the last 40 years. China opened itself to the world in 1980 when Deng Xiaoping announced the opening and reform program. 40 years. I was sent to China as a State Department official in 1982. 3 years after we had established diplomatic relations with China in 1979. In 1982, China was a poor country. It was a third world country. I had a 10-month-old son. I had to have the State Department send the diapers. We had to have food sent, shipped from Washington, D.C. to Beijing, where I was stationed. We used to fight over bananas. There was a local park, and some people from Hong Kong would bring up bananas and strawberries, and we would go to the park and we would get in each other's way trying to get a hold of some bananas and strawberries. In 1984, when President Reagan visited China, and I was his note taker, I was with the president for his trip. And one of his assistants, who later became the ambassador to China, James Lilly, who has since died, brought 2 boxes of lettuce, just regular iceberg lettuce, gave them to me, and he said, see what you can do with the lettuce. And so I went to the administrative office, and we agreed that families could get 1/4. We cut each head of lettuce into quarters and gave each person, each family, 1/4 of lettuce, because there was no lettuce. That's the China that I first knew back in the 80s. And that's certainly not the China that you see today. I was there 2 years ago, just before the pandemic started. In fact, the pandemic had already started in China. We didn't know it. And I was there all that time. I visited 4 hospitals. It's another story. But now, if you go to China, there is nothing lacking. And as I'll show you, and the slides go on, what I'm talking about. So as I show you these slides, if you're interested in the interactives, you can see, like I said, where China was back in the 80s and where it's at today. And like I said, it does have a goal, a plan for 2049. Here I stopped the 2043 because it was already, as you can see, way ahead of the US. If you're interested in, are we going to war with China? Are we destined for war with China? I would strongly recommend that you watch this TED lecture, Graham Allison. Again, you can go to YouTube. And he goes through all of the conditions in which we could go to war with China. And but in one part of his presentation, he again goes back to the economics, and you can see from his own information how he sees the balance between the US and China starting back in 2004. The US agreed and voted for China's entry into the World Trade Organization in 2001. So most of the data that I'll be showing you later starts about at that point. But you can see from his own data how he sees the world, the relationship growing up until the next 2 years. But you can see that China now, again, it's already wealthier than the US. But on GDP, it's eventually will overtake us because of the population. I put in population numbers so that you can get an idea of what we're talking about. When we're talking about China and how it's going, 1.4 billion people versus our 333 million. And I'm going to give you a series here of showing you where China's wealth is. And again, remember the purpose of this wealth is to make China the greatest economic superpower in the world by 2049. Foreign exchange reserves, what are they? Well, there's a reason for, and as you can see here, China leads the world with foreign exchange reserves. You can see the US down in number 14. But the important thing here is, going back to this statement that I saw from Paul Krugman for the New York Times, as you know, probably the preeminent economist that we have today. Keep Ukraine in mind. Look what we're doing to Russia, trying to crush it, its reserves and everything else tied into the economy. Well, if China were to attack Taiwan, which is another matter, another issue, and we adopt the same sanctions that we did with Russia, we would go after China's money. And as you can see, there's $3.5 trillion. And there's more, and there's more. On US savings bonds, you can see Japan finally overtook China as the leading holder of US Treasury bonds, but China has been buying Treasury bonds, as you can see, since 2000, but China really has more in savings now than any country in the world. And again, if there were to be conflict between the US and China, China knows that we would probably put a stop not only to the foreign exchange reserves, but also to the Treasury bonds, because China holds those bonds. One of the things that interests me about how China got so wealthy is American businesses, how they're involved in China. Here's a book that just came out, so I'll recommend it to you if this topic is of interest, because you will see that American businesses don't particularly care about the politics or anything else. All they care about is getting rich, and they are getting rich off of China, no matter where and under what circumstances they're doing business in China. Like I said, this particular book has a lot of information. I also have some information myself that I collected. The one that I chose for this presentation was Apple, Tim Cook. In a moment, I'll show you a later slide just to what degree Apple is bending, giving into Chinese interests, just so that they could stay in China and make money. So here we go. We start off with Cook with a secret deal. Other companies that are making money in China, Thermo Fisher. I think all of you have probably heard about what is happening in Xinjiang province. It's a Muslim province, Islamophobia in China. And one of the things the Chinese are doing there with a province of over 10 million Muslims is collecting their DNA and also facial recognition. I'll get to that point in just a moment. But the DNA is important because China is now collecting DNA not only from the Muslims, but 1.4 billion people. That way, if an accident happens, China can easily trace it back to someone because they will have a database, and I'll talk about that also in just a moment, on just about everyone living in China today, 1.4 billion people. But again, here the point is that this American company, knowing that there is what we all commonly call cultural genocide occurring in Tibet, in Xinjiang, in Inner Mongolia, anything that's not what is called Han Chinese, H-A-N, Han Chinese, these are the white nationalists, so to speak, equivalent. Han is the word for pure Chinese. 92% of China, the population that I just showed you, 92% consider themselves to be Han, pure Chinese. And like I said, living in China for 20 years, the Chinese are as racist as you find racism here in this country. They don't like blacks there either. There are so many fights. I used to live in this diplomatic compound. There was a pool, swimming pool. I used to take my son, my daughters there, and it was to be expected that sooner or later some African black would get into a fight with some of the Chinese workers there. But the point here again is that China now has DNA collected from just about everyone going into the country, and of course the 1.4 billion people that live in the country. These are the kind of companies that are doing business in China. You can see that in a moment I'm going to give you a figure that's going to shock you, just how much money is flowing into China from foreign companies. And if you're interested in what companies are doing business in China, in Xinjiang, in the province, as I said, that we all agree there's cultural genocide occurring. And I'll just give you a chance just to glance down here. You can look at these yourselves. I'm not going to single out anyone except Fisher, the DNA specialist, but you can see for yourselves all of the companies that are doing business in this one province that has been marked for cultural genocide. Any questions? If you have any questions, just please speak up. I'm going to look at the U.S. trade deficit with China because I told you all of this money that's going into China is adding up in China's favor. Why China has become the wealthiest country in the world today. And the U.S. trade deficit is important, mainly because that's what started the trade war. This is what got Trump going. When he took office in 2016, he noticed that there was a trade deficit. He got the wrong number, but there was a trade deficit. And he used it for political purposes to start off the trade war so that we could get Chinese goods to lower the tariffs so that they'd be cheaper, even though they're so darn cheap anyway. But the point was that he went after China on the trade war when he saw the trade deficit. This is my chart that I've been following the trade between the US and China. And as you can see, starting in 2003, when after China joined the WTO and we started getting information, this is all from the Census Bureau. This is official government numbers, they're not mine. And I said you could look at 2016, that's when Trump looked at the trade deficit and decided that we needed a trade war with China to lower the trade deficit and lower the cost of Chinese imports. You can see, just of interest for you, that the largest US imports, what we were bringing in from China, computers, cell phones, but computers. I understand this is what this group is all about. And so if you want to know where your computers are coming from, they're coming from China in some fashion. We know about cell phones because Apple makes it. The cell phone comes primarily from China. But here, when you put all of these numbers together, the number that I highlighted here, you can almost see almost $5.497 trillion that China has accumulated over the past 18 years, over $5 trillion. And you want to know how China got wealthy? There's a number for you. You can see overall the trade, close to $9 trillion, but China imported over 7. We only imported less than 2 trillion. And that's what, again, got Trump going, was how can we close the gap and stop China from making so much money off of the trade. If you want to see where China is also using their money, buying US real estate, it is absolutely amazing just how much they're buying. In Canada, in Vancouver, 80% of all houses over $1 million, 80% are owned by Chinese, paid in cash. And I highlighted in the next slide, I put this in, I'm sure all of you saw it. This is just Senator Wendy Rogers introduced a bill in the legislature here, moving to ban land purchases by Chinese communists, even though no one knows who they are, whether they're buying land here in Arizona. Someone, committee member, made a remark that I thought was pretty funny, that other than Sedona, I don't know what else they would want to buy. But in any case, I put this in here because I don't know that Chinese are interested in buying real estate in Arizona, but why not? They're buying real estate all over the country and all over the world, especially in Canada. Again, we get back to the wealthiest, the rich. And as you can see, China has overtaken the US in the number of billionaires. This is as of last year. We're just kind of getting started into 2022. But the list billionaires by countries, you can see here, China now has more billionaires than we do. Forbes also puts out a similar list, and it's pretty close. It's pretty close to the billionaires in the US and China. And again, keep in mind all of this in the last 40 years, since 1980, when Reform and Opening was announced by Deng Xiaoping. I put this in here also, just like I said, we were in China in December 2019. And I had meetings with Chinese officials. I was invited by the government because I'm involved in another business on the American Goodwill Mission to China. That's another story. And so my wife, Annie, took time to go downtown in Chongqing, a city of 32 million people. And she went and saw this car dealer, walked in and saw a Ferrari. And you can see just how much this Ferrari costs in China, $800,000. It's over 5 million Chinese dollars. And the guy, the dealer said, oh, it'll be gone within a week. He says, I put out one a week, and somebody will come in and buy it, pay cash for it. You hear about Black Friday here. Again, I'm just giving you an idea just how much money there is in China. And in one day, China now has its own days in November. They have one day comparable to our Black Friday. And as you can see here, just in one day, China spent last year, 2021, $84.5 billion in one day. And you can see just how much we spent on all of the companies that we put together and call it Black Friday. Poverty in China, as I said, when I arrived in 1982, China was a poor country. I traveled all over the country. I have been all over China. I've been to 5-star hotels, and I've been to little dingy things where I couldn't take my clothes off if I wanted to sleep. So I've been all over the place. And I can assure you that in 1978, I would say that the poverty rate in China was probably even higher than this. Like I said, there was no food. There was no food. And there wasn't anything. We had, as a government official, I had to have my stuff shipped, in canned foods. That's how I fed my family. But you see, go to China today, and you're going to see one of the most beautiful countries you'll ever see. Forget the politics. Put the politics aside. You want to look at the infrastructure. Infrastructure being one of the key political points in this country. What are we going to do? How are we going to fix the roads? I live on a country club in Allen. And Allen Street is one of the worst streets. They came in there and did a little bit of asphalt filling. Oh my God, it's embarrassing to say the least. Every time I drive down that street to take my puppy out to the park, I have to take, within a month, I have to go down to a car dealer, a car maintenance, and have the tires inspected, because all that bumpy road on Allen Street, you're not going to find that in China anywhere. That's how they're spending their money. Well, let's look at the Made in China program. Like I said, starting ending in 2049, as you can see here, in the phases. We're in phase 1 right now, and as you can see, I gave it a check mark. China's already met that goal of being 40% self-sufficient. Phase 2 would be the intermediate level, and then by phase 3 becomes a leading manufacturer in the world. And they're on their way, as I said before. If you look at the goals, on the first one, 40% self-sufficiency, they've already met that goal. 70% by 2025, that's not a problem. They're going to reach that. And then 100% self-sufficiency by 2045, and I said by 2049, China will have met all of its goals under the 2049 plan. China has targeted 10 sectors in which it is going to be dominant. And you can see these for yourselves. Anyway, these are the 10 goals to start with. This is not where it all ends. I'm going to be talking just about a few of these because I don't have time for everything. But these are the 10 sectors that China has targeted initially, where it will become the predominant technology STEM power in the world. And again, this is a program that China introduced that got the Trump war going, the trade deficit, as I mentioned. So Trump thought that by increasing tariffs on Chinese goods, that perhaps we could close that trade deficit. But this is what contributed to the trade war. And President Biden just You can see January 19th, when he was asked about the trade war, whether we had made any improvements, had China changed its tariff policies. He said, and I'm quoting him, "We're not there yet." Nothing has changed since Trump started the trade war in 2016. China is still making money off of us. Again, to show you just what China is doing, and as part of the program, as I said, because they're already meeting some of the goals. And I'll let you read all of these. I don't know. I'm going to talk specifically about 6 of them because, again, I don't have time to go through each and every one of them. I do have information on all of them, but I don't have the time here. But you can see yourselves, world's first qualified robotic doctor. I'll show you a slide on that one. Largest floating solar passenger drones. You can look at these yourselves. I'll give you a few minutes to look at them. Here's robotics. You can see a robot took a medical exam and passed it. Clones, they're doing monkeys, they've done sheep. I belong to a bank. I still have a bank account in China, and you don't have to go talk to people. As you walk in, the robots will meet you, and you can do all the business you want right there. I bring up dental implants because I needed a root canal. A robot didn't do it because I was not going to let a robot get into my mouth, but it was available. I had a human being do the root canal in China, a dentist. World's longest sea bridge. I've not been through it. I've seen it. But if you want to go now from Hong Kong into Macau, you want to be gambling, it's the Las Vegas of China, because every single casino, the major casinos you find in Vegas are located in Macau. And now you have an easy way to get from Hong Kong to Macau, if you like to go to casinos. This is big. We're world's first landing far side of the moon. We've never been there. We still haven't been there, but China has. The first AI teaching assistant, artificial intelligence, I'll talk about that later. I highlighted the news. China now delivers its news by robots. I'll show you in a moment. I'll show you a slide with one of those robots telling you the news. High-speed trains. I've been on these trains. They're the most amazing things you'll ever see. It beats flying. If I'm going to go from Nanjing to Beijing or anywhere else in China, I'll take a train because they are the smoothest, quietest modes of transportation you can possibly take. These trains are absolutely amazing, and you can see the speed. They're all over. Like I said, I've been all over. First American allowed in Tibet back in 1986. They didn't have railways in those days, but like I said, this map shows you Xinjiang, the same thing. First American allowed into Xinjiang back in the 1990s. That's other stories. Railway stations, bullet trains. You can just see those bullet trains are just absolutely amazing and quiet. The highest dams in the world. I bring this up because the Three Gorges Dam, the world's largest dam. It is absolutely amazing because the reservoir supposedly is the size of the state of Arizona. And there is a danger if this dam were ever to break or something, just what would happen, it would wipe out most of southern China. I'll tell you a story. Like I said, I've been there. Like I said, I represented the U.S. government at the groundbreaking ceremony for the Three Gorges. I know this place very, very well. Been there many times. My wife and I took a trip down the river, and it was absolutely a cruise ship. It's absolutely amazing. So I said, this place has a little place in my heart, so to speak. Roads, like I said, I was talking about Allen Road. Oh my God, you haven't seen anything like the roads that you have in China. You're not going to find potholes. Not a one will you find anywhere in China. And there's more. Here, I'll give you just again a few minutes to look over the list of where China is, what they're doing, how they're buying up, in a sense, the U.S., buying up, especially that second highlighted, the Smithfield's Food. It's the largest pork producer in the world, and now China owns it. And you can see yourselves the other areas that China now buys, especially in Detroit, buying Chinese, the companies, car companies. You might not even know that they are owned by Chinese, but they are. Coal mines in Tennessee. And you can see on the other side, you can see again a number of number ones that China has today. One of the points that I highlight here, China produces more than 90% of the global supply of rare earth elements. I'll get to that in just a moment. It's a very, very important issue today in U.S.-China relations. I'll get to that in a moment. Anything stand out? Anyone?
We should all start taking Chinese lessons.
Research and development. Again, who do you think leads the world, and where do they put their money? China. And you can see the numbers compared to the US. You like this one? Artificial intelligence. Top countries for the number of artificial professionals. You can see China leads the world, because China has committed itself to become the leading AI producer in the world today. And you can see most of the universities that are committed to AI research are Chinese. You can see down at the bottom, you see Stanford, Massachusetts, and in a moment I'll show you the U of A, which is kind of comical, as I'll point out later. But just keep that in mind, that most Chinese major universities are committed to AI research. What are they doing with it? Well, I talked about DNA. Well, there's another way that China identifies its people, especially if you've committed a crime. That's through facial recognition, which comes from AI. And this is just one photograph of workers going into a company to work. But they're all identified now by number, so that as they approach the company, the monitors in the company can tell who it is and whether they're legitimate or not. I want you to look at that number that I highlighted. The country will have almost 300 million cameras installed by 2020. They already have. They already have them. In fact, the number now that I saw is 400 million. 400 million cameras is the goal. And this one, which comes from a reputable reporter for the New York Times, 300 million cameras. And so I was wondering, just what about the US? Well, now you can see the cities with the most live cameras. Seattle's got 70. In Xinjiang, when I visited Xinjiang province, the cultural genocide, the Muslim province, one street corner, just one street corner, had 80 cameras in that one intersection alone, 80. And Seattle, the whole city, I guess it got 70. New York has 27. I couldn't believe it. This is new. I mean, these are current numbers. I don't know, Tucson doesn't have any anymore. Money is no object. Like I said, they're planning on putting in trillions of dollars into artificial intelligence, facial recognition, DNA, you name it. go to YouTube and look for the Chinese AI news anchor. It's only 2 minutes, but it's going to shock you when you see this robot delivering, telling you how news are going to be delivered in China today and are being delivered in China today. And you may not even know that the person doing it is a robot because they're based on actual human beings. Reverse engineering. This again applies to Xinjiang province. Now, can you read? Yeah, you can read. You should be able to read that. What? If you buy a smartphone in China, you have to have an app. You have no choice. You must have the app installed. And this app then can tell Chinese officials, as you can see here, information they gather ranges from a people's blood type to their height, circumstances under which information is being collected, religious atmosphere to your political affiliation. This app tells the government all it needs to know in this database. System tells you the registration of the car is not the same as the person who is buying the gas. So if you have somebody else's car and you're going to go get gas, this app will tell the gas station you're not the owner or you are the owner. And I only selected these 8. There are more. But I selected these 8 just to give you an idea that if you buy a smartphone in China, you must have apps installed that will tell the government everything it needs to know because China's collecting data on you every single day. I'll get to that also in another way, just a moment. Okay, for you, because you're computer specialists, or you can see here also that China's doing very well in the computer business. As I said, it's one of the top imports into the US are computers made in China. Whether they have a name or not, I don't know if it's just Lenovo or not, but I'm sure you're all familiar with that. But you can see the top computer makers, but like I said, our number one import from China would be computers. Just more information on, again, the size of Lenovo, just where it ranks in computers. Supercomputers. I have a personal story in just a moment. There is a publication called top500.com. .org. Is it .org? Yeah. Okay, .org, sorry. And every year, it publishes every 6 months the top 500 supercomputers in the world. And the last issue, November last year, you can see the top 5. Japan ranked first, US was second, third, fifth, and China was fourth. World's top supercomputers, so you can see China now belongs in that group. These are Chinese supercomputers that at one point or another were ranked number 1, these 3. Yeah, .org. This one might take a little bit of time just for you to look at, to read what those colors mean. But basically they mean on the purple side that China is producing more of the top 500 supercomputers in the US, Japan, Germany, France, etc. Now let's just look at those numbers. You can see. So in 2017, 202 of the top 500 supercomputers were made in China. Here I'm going to insert myself again, a personal story. I was a director for strategic trade, international affairs at NSC White House for President Reagan. Colin Powell, God bless him, was my immediate boss. So one day, Colin calls me to his office and says, Andy, we have a problem. We have mistakenly shipped a supercomputer to China. And this was a time when sanctions were against high-tech sales to China. Just after some incidents between the US and China. But we had sanctions on high-level technology. Okay, that's 1989. And here again, I ask you to do the math. 13 years later, China produces its first top 500 supercomputer. It was ranked number 43. In 2012, the US ranked first. But from 2013 to 2017, China produced the world's fastest supercomputer. In that time period, China was number one. You can see 2018, US reclaims, China reclaims, and lately it's been Japan producing the world's fastest supercomputers. And because of what China's doing, the Biden administration has decided enough is enough. We're placing some of the firms the Chinese are selling because we're afraid that what the Chinese are doing is improving their supercomputing, and as I'm going to show you in just a moment, quantum computing to the point where it could become a threat to US national security. I put in China's response because every time we do something, China does respond. The foreign ministry does come out and obviously responds to whatever we're doing. In this case, it's just simply saying, we don't care what you're doing, you're not going to stop us. And they're not stopping us because now we go into quantum computing. And this is what quantum computing is. All of you are computer people. I am not. So this is a little bit over my head, but at least I can understand the impact, although the terminology is not in my normal terminology. But when you look at the terminology, two of the most powerful quantum computers in the world to date now both come from China. And the one that, I can't wrap my mind around this, that there's a quantum computer, forget the name Zhejiang. Zhejiang simply means 9 chapters. So that's another story. But look at what it did. It calculated, you could read yourselves, a problem in 200 seconds that would take a supercomputer 2.5 billion years to complete.
Wow.
Huh? Terry?
That's pretty awesome.
Like I said, my mind is not, it's not there. I just can't put my mind around that kind of. But I think all of you, since you are computer specialists, I think you probably can. The race is on, and China has a lead in quantum encryption. The day is going to come, the belief is that China, with its quantum computers, will be able to go into any database anywhere in the world and break it. You're not going to be able to protect your data from China at all. And here the university gets 26 million. Like I said, it's laughable. It's laughable as far as I'm concerned, because 26 million isn't going to do anything to close the gap between the US and China. China is spending 26 billion on quantum computing, probably even more. You saw that they're committed to over $1 trillion in just technology itself. .5G technology, we hear so much about that. Guess who takes the lead? China leads the race to deploy 5G. And there's a company that I'll show you in just a moment a name that you should learn.
Yeah, Huawei.
because Huawei, and if you're familiar with it, Harry just mentioned it, is does have the lead, and of course we're trying to stop Huawei from what it's doing. There was a ban from the Trump administration that's been lifted by the Biden administration, but still, it's a Chinese company owned by the Chinese government, even though Huawei says it's not. We know it is. How fast will you be able to download files? What's 5G? I have a T-Mobile phone. I asked a brand new one. I bought an iPhone 13 and I said, it's got 5G capabilities. I said, bull roar. We're not there yet. 5G is not there yet. There are the 5G towers going up. But, I got T-Mobile to admit that really it's not truly 5G. It's going to be someday, but not yet. But they're selling Verizon, AT&T, all of these companies are selling their technology as 5G. Well, that's the goal, but they haven't really reached it yet. And you can see just what it would do if you really had 5G technology. Huawei, like I said, it's become the number one 5G. It's become one of the top companies in the world today. And like I said, at one time we accused the company of stealing our trade secrets in technology. The mobile carrier T-Mobile used to test smartphones, and I asked them about that. Of course, the workers there don't know what I'm talking about, but the point being that whatever charges were brought against Huawei were lifted by the Biden administration, and the CFO, the daughter, who was she was arrested in Canada. We wanted her to be extradited, and under the Trump administration, but finally we lifted the ban, and so she was allowed to go to China. She was living in a $6 million mansion in Canada while she was under arrest. Her baby. Cyber sovereignty. Again, that's another area where China now has taken the lead. We do know that China has gone in to hack our government database. I know that for a fact. Several years ago, China hacked the Department of Defense and the Office of Personnel Management. As a former government official, I was sent a notice that my name was on the list of those that China had hacked. And I said, well, it doesn't matter. I said, I lived in China for 20 years. They don't need to hack my name. They know who I am. Space, again, China has a plan. And as I said, the president now has, when he took over, he had a China dream. That was all. The idea was the rejuvenation of China to what it was when it was an empire. But now he's added the space dream to his dream. So now he's got two dreams. And he's fulfilling both. The China dream, where, like I said, if you go to China today, you're going to see the most advanced modern country that you'll ever see. Forget the politics. Just look at the objective world. But now he's got another dream, and that is to make China a space, the supreme space power. And they're getting there. They're getting there. China's got its own space station. So astronauts, China becomes the second nation to plant a flag on the moon. But more importantly, it's the only country that has successfully orbited, landed, and deployed a land vehicle in its debut Mars mission. So China not only went to the other side of the moon, where we have never been to, but now they're in Mars, and they're also exploring Mars. And then now they have other dreams of going beyond Mars And all I can say is if they have that as part of their plan, they're going to do it. So does the NASA administrator. He believes it. He went to Congress, asked for more money, which he was denied. So we're not going to be in a space race with China if we're not going to put the money out there for it. Again, just another indication of Chinese technology, where they're going with their science. China brings back moon rocks. I didn't initially, I was, well, what's the big deal here? Well, competition for resources. Because if you can't find what you need here on Earth, you go to the moon. Now you go to Mars, and like I said, and beyond. This is what I was talking about, China landing on the far side of the moon. First of its kind. They've got the rockets. They have the technology, as I said, not only to go to the moon and Mars, but beyond. What can we do about it? Well, one of the things is we cannot cooperate with one another because there is a congressional act that forbids NASA from working with the Chinese. And so far, there has not been any indication that both sides want to work together in space exploration. Under the Trump administration, they thought maybe they should put out a statement saying that we were going to challenge China, but as this one person said, it's too late for trying to put a stamp on something. It's just trying to say that they did something so that the record shows that the Trump administration was going to do something about space exploration. It didn't do anything, nor has the Biden administration. I think all of you probably have heard about hypersonic missiles, hypersonic technology. A hypersonic missile, as you can see here, can travel 3,800 miles per hour undetected. And this is something that worries us, as I'll show you in just a moment. Think about 3,800 miles per hour. China really is about 7,000 miles. And every time I fly, it depends on the route you take, which means that a missile launched in China could arrive in the US within an hour and a half. And we don't have a missile defense system, as I'll show you in just a moment. So there is a war between the US and China. You're going to see in a moment that China has an advantage over us when it comes to missiles. Starting with this one. Going back to hypersonics, Chinese military has conducted hundreds of supersonic tests in the last 5 years. The US has conducted only 9 such tests. In addition to missiles, China has a hypersonic aircraft. They have now, as you can see here, hypersonic aircraft that if we were to get into an air fight with China, this is what we would be facing. And so how do we respond to that? With $10 million. $10 million to the U of A. 25 for quantum computing, 10 for hypersonic facilities. And again, what is China spending? China's digital ambitions. This is something new. This is something that I just came across. Data is the oil of the 21st century. China will be the world's largest digital market by 2018. This graphic is maybe a couple of years old because China is already the largest digital market. And again, that goes back to cyber sovereignty. This is the way that China can now hack any place in the world undetected once they get those quantum computers going. If you are interested in doing business in China, be careful, because China has two laws. I just got this notice. I'm still on the State Department's information office, and so they send me information up to date. This was, you can see, February 24th. This is just a warning that there's the law that's enacted in November. Basically, what it's saying is, if you want to do business in China, you have to find a partner, and then you have to give the partner all of the information that makes your company whatever it is. You cannot keep any secrets, algorithms, or whatever term you want to use from the Chinese company, which then turns it over to the Chinese government. That's how they get ahead. And here's the law, two laws that any American business who wants to do business in China should be aware of. If you want to see just what it takes, look at this. Look at what Apple did. How does Apple do business in China? You can read these yourselves. Just makes the point that I'm trying to make here. Here we go again on digital scores. Here we have something we call FICO. Well, what China has, everyone now has to have a credit card. You don't need cash in China. When I was there in 2019, everything that I did, we call Uber. All I do is get on my Uber app, and within 5 minutes, I'll have one of the best cards you can ever see, take you wherever you want. All you do is swipe a card and you pay go to a restaurant, you can call in advance, you can look at the menu in advance, order in advance, make a reservation. You arrive, you sit down, and you don't have to look at a menu. They bring the food that you've already ordered, and then as you go out, you just swipe the card and you pay. There is no cash in China anymore. No cash. But what the Chinese do, because everybody has to have a card, if you go to a liquor store and you buy liquor, that goes against you and it lowers your FICO score. If you do something wrong, you break the law, it goes against you and it reduces your FICO score. And it's going to make it more difficult for you to borrow money, to buy a car, to buy a house, to do anything. That's what this card is about. It is giving all the information, giving your life to the Chinese government. I thought that this might be of interest to you because China is now, as I said, since they're committed to becoming the science technology superpower, you can see that they're also doing it by educating their students. And they're certainly outdoing us even in this area, as you can see from this graphic. Even though there was a decline because of the pandemic, the number that I want you to look at is that 372,000. That's how many Chinese students were here in the US, all universities in the US, just the US alone, over 372,000 students scattered throughout the US, most of them in the sciences. I sent quite a few, over 100 students, because I taught at a Chinese high school, the best Chinese high school in Nanjing. And I recruited them not for any money. I didn't get paid. I just simply recommended the U of A because the U of A does have a good science program. But now it's becoming clear, and they came here and got to get their degrees. And of course, they go back to China with all that information. I thought you might be interested in just what the impact of Chinese students at the U of A campus. Now take a look at this one. I just put this together yesterday because I just found a link because I've been after trying to get numbers. Now there's this thing called College Factual. You can see up next to the Chinese flag. The flag was put in there. This is not mine. This is from the link that I showed you here. If you go to that link, you'll get all this information. But you can see the number of Chinese students here at the U of A. The last number that we had for the pandemic, 1,800. So there's probably that many students today at the U of A studying, and most of them are in the science and technology. And like I said, the U of A is a popular place because we do have a good science program here. So what's the beef? What was our complaint about the made in China? Well, as far as Navarro, who was President Trump's China expert, one of them, his main concern was that China was seeking dominance of leading edge high-tech industries. And then you get into the fact you have this book by Kai-Fu Lee, again, looking at China's development as a STEM superpower. The copycat areas behind us were way beyond that. Well, not really, not really. They're still stealing our technology. China is still stealing our technology. And I highlighted the Chinese theft of American IP, intellectual property, currently costs between $225 billion and $600 billion annually. That's how much China steals from us in one way or another. Then the FBI director gave a speech. You can find it on YouTube if you're interested. But he says that they open a case about every 10 hours. Of the nearly 5,000 active FBI cases currently underway, almost half are related to China. Every year, the U.S. Trade Representative puts out its annual report on intellectual property theft. And China's been on the priority watch list for 16 consecutive years. Again, I don't have time to get into the details, but all you got to do is just Google USTR and you'll get the latest report as I do. This is what I give to my students. We go over the report. But you can see that China still ranks pretty high as on IPR theft. And that would include something like this particular jet that we had the Joint Strike Fighter. We were so proud of it. China hacked it, now they've got one. It's called the J-20. Okay, we're almost there, so please I'm just gonna go show you the slides. Who's winning the tech Cold War? Market evaluation of top tech. I'm not gonna read them, I'm just gonna, you can read them yourselves, you get the idea. Let me just interrupt on this one because if there is a weakness, China has a weakness. It does not produce its own chips. The biggest chip maker is in Taiwan. And so when you hear about China wanting Taiwan one way or the other, one of the major reasons is that Taiwan is a major producer of semiconductor chips in the world. That's where we get most of ours. I'm not so sure about this one, but. So that's. China's made a commitment to turn over its the car industry into electric vehicles, so they're going to get rid of gas. And so keep an eye on that because they made a commitment now to go from gas to electric vehicles. So keep an eye on that one. This chart will change, I guarantee, within the next 5 years. That's it.
I have a question.